in
Mhm.
reviewing, in seeing the good, in seeing where you might be able to iterate. And by doing regular daily and weekly planning, it makes so that the interval doesn't go off the rails. Okay. Life might go off the rails for a week or two, generally not for 6 weeks straight. Right. So you can go back and look at, think about the normal weeks, right?
Welcome to the Simply Convivial podcast. Convivial means enjoying life together, and that's the hospitable atmosphere that we want to create in our homes. I'm Mystie Winckler, homemaker, homeschool mom, and grandma. And as we've been talking about planning and homemaking over the years, one of my biggest insights has been that for your planner to work, you have to look at it. And so today I have on the Convivial Circle community manager, Stefani Mons, and we're going to talk about that habit, looking at your planner. Stefani is a wife and homeschooling mom with 2 teens and 1 graduate who has made over her attitude and her routines and now helps other women do the same inside Convivial Circle as the community manager. She is especially good at helping, especially with marriage questions and health habits. So thank you so much for joining me. One of the key things that we do inside Circle is help people write stuff down and then look at it. And I think you have a great setup and system for reviewing your planner and your plans in a very helpful rhythm that I was hoping you would explain to us.
So, I did not invent these myself, of course. But inside Convivial Circle, we talk about the evening review. So that's a daily review where we look at just what happened for the day, right? It's a short period of time. And so there's not a lot to review, but actually that tends to be the most helpful one because you do it so often that it makes it easy to iterate what you're doing. And it's easy to review when it's just the past, 16 or so hours that you've been awake. And then there is a weekly review to look over the week and see how that went. And then reviewing at intervals. So for me, roughly every 6 to 12 weeks to take a look at how things are going, with routines and habits, my attitude, my stress levels, things like that to evaluate to see what I might need to change or add or subtract.
Yeah, I know one thing that happens is if we are not writing things down and not looking things over, but just staying in our own head about, how we're doing, is to just notice what's going wrong. So as you're doing the evening and weekly and interval reviews, how do you stay out of that kind of just negative evaluation?
Yeah, I think writing it down helps. Because so one of the things I do for my evening review is I write on my daily card, which seems silly. Like I'm about to put it away. I'm not going to see this daily card anymore. But I write on it a few words, or even I've actually changed how I did it so I could put a little bit more notes on it, but how the day went, right? And so as soon as I go to write down, like, really bad, right? As soon as I go to write that down, I'm like, okay, it wasn't really bad. So I can't really write this down. Like, what happened? So sometimes the act of taking those thoughts and actually trying to write it down, you're like, no, that's actually a lie, right? So what happened? Was it really so bad? It's like, okay, it was a long day. It was stressful. There were too many, things that went, for out of the house or whatever. Um, so I can write down a more real story of what happened, right? A more true story, which is
Mhm.
one of the things we talk about. And so writing it down helps to properly evaluate it because it doesn't just stay in my head the whole time. So that's one of the ways that I do it. And then on my weekly review, I have several questions that I ask myself. But again, I make sure on my weekly review, the first question is, what went well this week? Let's change the mindset. Instead of jumping into where the week might have gone wrong, right? Let's remember where we're at, right? Like, because we're aiming in a direction and we're going to miss it, right? Things come up, nobody's perfect. So I'm aiming for a certain thing and I'm going to miss. But how close did I get? because maybe I actually got close and I think I don't need to overhaul everything, right? That's like the planner perfectionism. I just come up with a perfect plan. I will hit that bullseye every time and I don't have to worry about coming off target ever again, which is false, right? We're never going to hit that bullseye. But how far off am I? Maybe I was way off. And maybe that does mean that I had, an unrealistic homeschooling plan coupled with I was going to deep clean everything because, my mother's coming to visit or something. Like, obviously, those were unrealistic plans. I was like way off target for that. So when you talk about what went well, you can see how close you were to the target. And so how much you might need to change or rethink things, right? Because we've all had those days where we're like, oh, this week it's going to be a piece of cake. And then you're like, oops, that. So, but yeah, we didn't like throw it all out.
Right. Because sometimes, if you think of what you've written down for the week as the target, sometimes it was our target that was off. So we actually shot in the right direction, but our target was not where it was supposed to be.
Right. I mean, whether it's poor planning on our part or something happened in the week to change the target, right? Oh, people
Yes.
get sick. It's like, you know what? Okay, then homeschooling's off the table. That obviously was not in the plans for this week. And I mean, obviously God knew that, but I did not know, that everyone is going to come down sick. And so you make alterations. And in that case, that doesn't mean your plan went wrong. And so maybe for a week like that, you look at, well, how well did I do flexing from the plan that I had? Did I, have a bad attitude and stomp around that I was taking care of cleaning up my children from snotty noses or vomit or whatever it is? That was a better use of my time than this other plan that I had. And sometimes we get stuck in that mode of like, well, I didn't get done what I had planned. And so now I'm mad about it. What's the point of planning? It doesn't work. Right.
Yes.
But that is obviously that's a bad attitude. So what did go right? Did you actually feed and clothe all the sick people, right? Or did we get the bulk of homeschooling done, even if science experiments did not happen, right? Like we want to get on our own case for it. And then when you look at the bigger picture, it's like, oh, no, actually, I was getting down on myself and that was the wrong thing. And actually, one of my prompts on my weekly review is, let me see, get the exact thing. Reframe any lies you are telling yourself as truth.
Mm, good one.
And I do that all the time. I'm like, that's not true. Like I was constantly writing down like, because the question before that is where are you falling short? And I would say like, I just don't have enough time. And so I put that one in because I'm like, that's a lie. I have enough time. I do for the things that God has put in front of me. Not always my plans.
Yes. Not enough time to do everything, but we weren't supposed to do everything.
Right. To do the important things. I have time to do those important things, even if the house turns into, absolute chaos by the end of the week because of whatever happened.
Yeah. And then how does that help your interval plan, like stay realistic?
So you mean like by putting the daily and the weekly with the interval plan, or how do I keep my
Yeah.
interval plan realistic?
Like, how does taking that time daily and weekly to review how things went and reframe those stories, how do those reviews play into making your interval plan?
Okay. Well, I would say that first of all, it gives you practice in
Mhm.
reviewing, in seeing the good, in seeing where you might be able to iterate. And by doing regular daily and weekly planning, it makes so that the interval doesn't go off the rails. Okay. Life might go off the rails for a week or two, generally not for 6 weeks straight. Right. So you can go back and look at, think about the normal weeks, right? So ignore when everybody was sick and say, okay, well, how do we do on those other weeks? And what do I need to change now that we put these plans into place? We kind of experimented almost, for these 6 weeks with how, schooling was going to be, right? Like, don't go changing your school schedule until you've actually tried it, right? For more than a day or a week, that like then you might say, okay, this really isn't working. And I've had times where I've done that, where I've completely had to like turn my schedule upside down because it's like, well, I tried it and we did our best trying to do, this and then this and then this for our flow. And it's like, well, that didn't work out. obviously we need a bigger change than I was anticipating. And that's the time to do those changes during the interval. So like a bigger review of like how everything is going and kind of like working together even, right? Because like on a particular day, you might have more of a homeschooling focus or a homemaking focus. But when you look at the interval, you look at like all your routines. Like I generally think about all the routines that I do, like with, how's the homeschooling schedule going? How is, EHAP going? And, my morning and evening routines, like what is getting left out or left behind that I need to bring back? And how can I do that now that I've realized something's gone by the wayside for, a couple months now.
Yeah. So between the daily review and the weekly review and the interval planning chunk, you've helped hundreds of ladies troubleshoot these different routines. Which one would you say most women have struggle with?
I do think the interval plan takes the longest just because you do it less frequently and you can get along for quite a while just for doing a weekly review, you know? Um, because there are seasons where things just really don't change that much, right? Like most people probably don't have a lot that's changing during the month of, September and October, right? Things might start changing with the holidays. Then when we get back into January, a lot of things just kind of stay the same, even through the spring. A little hiccup maybe at Easter time with, more church services, but a lot of things can stay the same. So a weekly review, a lot of ladies can do that for months and months and months, or even years, and never touch an interval plan or review at all. Um, so the interval plan is definitely the hardest of the three, but I think the interval plan is really helpful for getting into more of those big picture planning implementations, um, because you can't accomplish everything in a week,
Mhm.
right? If I have a focus of I want to declutter something, it might take me 6 weeks, but I don't have a basement. But if you were to say, "I wanna declutter the basement," you can't do that in a day or a week. But you might say, "Okay, well, I am gonna focus on decluttering the basement during this interval," right? And so you're gonna take 6 to 12 weeks and baby step your way through decluttering the basement. Um, that way it gives you a time frame so you don't just say, "Well, I'm gonna get it done sometime," right? So that's the advantage of an interval plan and doing an interval review is you're just looking at a short chunk of time instead of a year, which most people, they just do, "Oh, what am I doing today? What am I doing this week?" And then the year. Although some people do look at, a month to month, but sometimes a month is also too short to get things done. So I generally, I see people in circle who say, "I just wanna have a month review." And I'm like, "Well, I don't generally recommend that. Maybe if you only have little kids or a newborn and you're just getting into the habit of it, then that's probably fine, but you don't wanna feel like you're looking at all of your systems, every 4 weeks. That's a lot to do." So,
Right. Right, and we do tend to think that we'll get more done when we look at those shorter times, like a week or even a month. It's like, "Oh, I could totally declutter the basement or whatever," until it happens and you're like, "Well, I didn't get to it at all." It's like, it's because in the back of your mind, you knew you weren't gonna get it done, and so then you didn't wanna start.
yeah. So you have to give yourself the right amount of time for things, right? Which is where the interval plan comes into play. Like, how much schooling or how much of an establishment of school routine can you get done in 3 or 4 weeks? It's really not that much. The first week is sometimes, getting the kinks out. Oops, I can't find this book. I thought we printed this. Oh no, the pencils have disappeared, right? So then week 2 is like, okay, we're on track and we have everything in front of us now and we're starting to get used to the schedule. So by weeks 3 and 4, it's like, okay, I think we finally got this going. So now is not the time to evaluate because you've really only been doing it well for like 2 or 3 weeks, and that's not enough to evaluate usually. I mean, it's the same with weight loss, right? When you talk
Right.
about like, "Oh, I've got a health goal or a weight loss plan," you don't look at it for only 1 week or 4 weeks, right? Like, oh, I'm going to get a PR in my deadlift or something. I don't deadlift. But anyway, if you were, it would probably going to take you more than a month to build up and get new personal bests for things. So we know what happens outside of the homemaking arena, and then we think it's different inside the homemaking arena. The things take time.
Yeah, and then, some of those things that you do have to, like, just cycle back through again, and it's like, "Oh, well, I did declutter my laundry room, and after 4 weeks, I probably don't have to again, but after 6 weeks, I might need to look at that laundry room again." And so it kind of gives you a rhythm of not expecting the work to be once and done, but you know that your life has a rhythm that you can, "I'll just be checking back in on this."
Right. Right.
Mhm. Or with the right season, like, "Oh, this is the holiday season, so this is where we do these things, but we're not gonna do other things."
Right. So that's also part of my interval review is to review previous intervals, so I keep my paperwork because it's digital. So I go back and I look at, well, what did last year's holiday interval look like? And so I'm moving things forward from, the previous interval to the next one, but also looking at that season in another year, right? Because like, oh, that's right, I need to do that thing, or that's right, this is not the season for this, even though I didn't finish it this interval.
Right.
It really can't move into Christmas time.
Time to make it a New Year goal.
Yeah, yeah. That'll have to go on the back burner for a minute. So, and actually, I have done that before where I'm like, well, I don't want to forget that I want to bring this back. So I actually put it on my interval plan, but then I cross it out to know like it's still there. Don't forget about me. But now is not the time. So just cross it out. And then since I bring things over from the previous interval, then it'll show up again in January. And I'm like, oh, yes, time to take off that strike through for the font.
Nice. That really works.
It's kind of like your someday maybe
Sunday.
list.
Mhm.
But I'm like, well, it was already there from my harvest interval. Now I'll just cross it out so I don't have to retype it somewhere else.
Yeah,
Laziness. Copy and paste is so hard.
that is handy. So do you have a review procedure list? It sounds like you do for your weekly review. Like, questions you're asking yourself, that's decided ahead of time, printed out, so you're just moving through, you're
Mhm.
not remembering in your head.
Yeah, no, because my head is not for memorizing things like that. I wrote it down so I didn't have to remember. We say that a lot around here, so it's a good quote. So yeah, I have my interval review sheet that I go through, my weekly review sheet, and I have as a task in my task list what I do for my evening review, which is less question oriented because it's just quick, but it's mostly telling me what to do so I don't forget. But it's, just a few lines in my task. But yeah, because when you think, oh yeah, I know what to do, suddenly you're in front of the paper and you're like, well, I don't know what to do, so let me just hurry up and do what I think, and then you realize you've forgotten things. So that's why we make lists so that we don't forget.
Mhm. Or you just avoid getting started because you don't know what getting started even is supposed to look like.
Right. Yeah. That's another problem. Like, well, I don't know what to do for this. It's like, well, and we have lists, inside Convivial Circle to give examples for people to do for these reviews. And then it's like, just start there. And then if it's not working or you need to reword something, then go ahead, make it your own. So I mean, that's what I do all the time. I mean, we are not the same people, Misty. So we have different personalities, we have different trains of thought and the way we come at problems. Um, so sometimes your wording, like it's a good start, and then I realize I need different wording. There are different words that speak to me differently to help me get to that point that took these words for you and it takes these words for me. But we get to the same place in the end.
Yeah. Well, that's why I think it works so well in the community, is to have, just the different angles and the different perspectives. And you never know at what point it will click for someone else too. And then the ladies in the community also bring their perspective, and you just kind of get that, I don't know, community knowledge.
Crowdsourcing.
It's crowdsourcing.
Right. Like even I learn things. Like, I mean, I've been in circle for a long time and helping people for years now, but there are still ladies who come up with ideas. I'm like, man, that's really good. I never thought of that. So let me go ahead and, take a note of that. There was something that somebody had put and I copied it into my Google Notes, and I haven't figured out how to, um, bring it into my planning or daily use yet, but I keep seeing it in my notes, so I can keep thinking about it, figuring out how to apply it, but I'm like, "That's a really good, like, rubric for thinking through things." So,
Mhm.
everybody has different ideas, but not that take you to different places.
Right. Yeah. Still operating on the same principles, but the
Mhm.
expressions of them are varied, and it's really
Right.
great.
It makes sense because if most of us are Christian women, then of course the goal, right? What is the chief end of man? It's the same for everybody, right? Like to glorify God and enjoy Him forever. And we're all going to get there in different ways, but we'll still get there.
So, Stephanie mentioned how intervals are great for holiday planning. And holiday planning is exactly what we are going to do together inside Convivial Circle for the month of November. We're going to put together a working holiday plan and we'll make our family holidays convivial. And in our next episode, Stephanie and I are also bringing on our teammate Lisa, and we're going to chat about what holiday plans actually look like. So stay tuned right here.